Hi everybody, welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, Peter Clayton's behind the camera, and this, for the next, what do you reckon, Pete, 20 minutes?
20 minutes.
Got to keep it down! It's the court of public opinion. I hope that the farmers are getting some of this rain. I think it's rained every day of the week for a couple of weeks. Anyway, a few days we will have the quarterly inflation figures, which should lock in a rate cut for next month from the RBA. We'll see. The Prime Minister's appearance on the Insiders Sunday morning, I don't know if you saw it, it was a promotional opportunity for Anthony Albanese. Not an interview, well, in my opinion anyway. He used the word clearly 23 times. Clearly. Meaning if you didn't see things his way, you were obviously blind. I'll tell you what is clear. Regardless of the question, his replies were just Labour Party propaganda. His whole appearance on the show was an opportunity to say what he was doing about the cost of living, which they quite rightly identify as the major issue in our country. I've got a lot of time for David Spears. He's good. But for him to sit there without asking the Prime Minister about the cause for this explosion in our cost of living, which is clearly, there, I've used it, clearly, I used the word, clearly it is the result of Labour's energy policy. Extraordinary that we could go from the cheapest electricity in the world to the most expensive in just a bit over 3 years. It's not only amazing, it's unacceptable and inexcusable. Particularly when their fixation, obsession with renewables will achieve absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter what we do here in Australia. 1% of emissions, nothing, no problem. But it will cost every man, woman and child a great deal. You know, the first rule of government, I've said this to you before, should be do no harm. The cost of living, the cost of everything up 30%. Why, Prime Minister? Why? Come on, David. Prime Minister, what is the problem you're trying to fix? David, honestly, it's not difficult to ask the question. Anyway. By the way, Friday morning around the dining room table at 9:05, the lights went out. Yeah, a blackout. Yeah, common in the third world. Thank you, Prime Minister, Chris Bowen, all the rest of you. Our electricity is not only expensive, it is unreliable. It looks like Bedford Industries is in danger of having to close its doors. They were talking about voluntary administration on the weekend. 80 years they've been around, doing good things. Now, I don't know if we're getting the whole truth here. The state government has put in $15 million in exchange for some very valuable real estate. That's business, I guess. And I don't know whether that's a loan or that's in exchange for the land. I don't know. Bedford is a sheltered workshop, paying disabled workers, some 1,600 I think, a very small wage to do very good work. But importantly, giving dignity and a purpose to life. If Bedford and others like it close, this will be a huge blow to a lot of people. For years, there has been controversy around sheltered workshops. You would probably know this. And what's going on here, I think, is an example of destroying the good in pursuit of the perfect. These people can't be paid an able-bodied salary. Some say, oh, that's slave labour. No. Whether it's the unions, the union movement or not, I don't know. But this and other sheltered workshops will close, and for no good reason. It's very similar to the argument against special schools. Believe it or not, some people want these children with Down syndrome, various disabilities to be taught in mainstream schools. Now, if you're a regular viewer to the Court of Public Opinion, I'm all for treating all people equally, but not to the disadvantage of the disabled. Some people will not survive unless they are treated differently, appropriate to their needs. And that goes for the schoolroom and the workplace. Why don't we just focus on outcomes, not ideology? And this is one that I found really interesting. Workers will not, this is Labour, workers will not be allowed to take a 35% increase in their salary. Where's the opposition on that, I wonder? What? They can't take a pay rise? Even if they want to, they can't take it? Well, they can't because the union, and therefore the government, says no. Well, that's not democracy. These bullies, you know, they say solidarity, one for one, one for all for one, you know, no crossing the floor, no dissent, definitely no freedom of thought, let alone freedom of speech. This is why so few people choose to belong to a union. I think the last figure I saw was under 12%. If I'm a worker, a lower paid worker, might be hospitality, could be retail, and the boss says, look, I'll do a deal with you. I'll give you a 35% pay rise if you give up overtime, penalty rates, holiday leave loading. Now there's a subject, holiday leave loading. Can you imagine who thought of that? An employee is worth more when on holidays than on the job? Stupid. Anyway, in any case, it should be my decision, my choice as a worker. It's my call. It's my labour I'm selling. It's called freedom. The left don't like freedom. They're scared what we might do with it. A private member's bill to end the welcome to country nonsense. More to come on that. And this is a great story. 80 trucks, big trucks from Western Australia. A convoy of kindness. Farmers across borders, the need to feed Australia, they're all involved in it. They're responsible for 80 trucks laden with hay for drought-stricken farmers in South Australia. A wonderful gesture. Bless you. Bless you one and all. And with a bit more of this rain, hopefully falling in the right places, the farmers will be able to take a breather, maybe. Stop the windmills. Trump said that. Stop the windmills. I say it too. But let me repeat it. Stop the windmills. Why don't we have environmentalists all over the world demonstrating over this atrocity, all over the beautiful countryside, which is being destroyed in the name of these environmentally destructive things? The energy that is used to make them will never be saved over their 20-year life. So what's the point? Then, of course, they have to be disposed of at considerable environmental cost. It's atrocious and so stupid. And I heard this, I can't remember what day it was, a couple of days back. Sally McManus, head of the ACTU, is blaming the bosses for low productivity. Now, there's going to be a big tax and productivity round table coming up soon. Productivity is a big buzz thing at the moment. So the ACTU, peak body controlling the unions, they say it's the bosses. The bosses are not providing the correct atmosphere in the workplace. Productivity, nothing to do with the union policy of the least amount of work for the most amount of money over the shortest number of hours. Oh, no, 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 no. And while we're on the subject, why don't we have a 4-day working week while being paid for 5? No, no, it's workplace atmosphere, of course. Perhaps it's the vibe. Yeah, it could be the vibe. I'll leave you to make up your mind and maybe call me on Friday. Watching the news the other night, I couldn't understand this Middle East Palestinian situation, which is engendering and provoking riots everywhere. Terrible, terrible pictures. Deprivation, the deprivation of these people. They're starving. Everything that is the residue, the consequence of war. And the Palestinian people don't understand that Hamas is the cause of all their misery. All they have to do is realize that it's not Israel, it's Hamas and Hezbollah, the cause of their misery and hunger, everything. But having said that, people are funny. I think to myself, you take our cost of living, for example, and the cost of electricity, our major problem here in Australia at the moment. We had an opportunity to go to the polls and change everything, fix the problem. What happened? We re-elected the problem. They get re-elected with an increased majority. So I suppose I can't be too critical of the Palestinians, who just go on suffering indeed, as we will go on suffering, because we didn't realise who was the perpetrator of our problem, any more than they understand who's the perpetrator of their problem. We all should just cut to the chase and maybe join the dots. We're here with the best wishes of the rising sun. Lovely people, Bridge Street at Kensington, 8333 0721. Grant will be there, or Jackie. Sometimes they're both there on a Friday night or Saturday night. They'll really look after you. The Rising Sun, lots of character. Beautiful old building built back in 1845. Handmade bricks. Lots of timber. Open fires. Beautiful food. Great wine. And great hospitality. Often, as I've told you many times, voted the best pub or inn in South Australia. And of course, Jim Elder's Fine Art Gallery is there in Melbourne Street, getting ready for the second big auction of the year. The galleries, there are two of them. One is a church and the other one is the purpose-built gallery that Jim and Helen built all those years ago. 106 and 110, Melbourne Street, North Adelaide. And I'll let you know when the catalogue is released. He sends me a copy of that. And believe me, the catalogue is a work of art all by itself, but certainly reflects the wonderful paintings that will come up for worldwide auction. But if you want to ring 8267 2869, he will be very happy to give you a free appraisal of a painting that you might like to have included in that auction upcoming. And I'll tell you when it's on. 0491 65 68 60 is my number for Friday, jeremycordeaux.com, live streaming around the dining room table, or you can get Simple Radio. It might be easier to listen to it on Simple Radio, because unlike this presentation, this is with pictures. It's all the bells and whistles, but that around the dining room table is just the audio. And if you go to Simple Radio, you will have me in the palm of your hand, in your mobile phone. Did you see that story on the weekend about the immigrants arriving in Calais in France, on their way to the UK, across the channel, lining up to get in their rubber dinghies? Criminals smuggle these Middle Eastern and African refugees with great risk and with great loss of life. A journalist, now I think he would have been with the BBC, could have been CNN, but I think the BBC. He said to one of the spokespeople, they don't want to be identified, of course, you can understand that. He said, "Why are you so desperate to get to the UK? You're risking your life." And the answer was, "We have to get there." "What is it about the UK?" he asked. "Why can't you stay in France? What's wrong with Italy? You came through Spain. Why didn't you stay there?" The reason? Welfare. To get onto welfare. That's what they sold us. There it was, the audio track. The people smugglers are selling a trip to the UK where they'll get welfare. That's the problem. You take the sugar off the table and you destroy the people smugglers' business model. I'm pretty sure that Nigel Farage will win the next election, hands down, because the Brits can now see what's happening to their country. He is a man who has a formula for not only winning an election, but saving his country. Have I got time for one more? With the significant reduction, which was a populist thing to do, and I think politicians should do things that are popular, significant reduction in HECS debt, 20%. I think that 20% is the thin end of the wedge, however. The cry will now be to scrap the HECS system altogether. Maybe talk to me on Friday about this, but people go to university to access a better future, a higher standard of living, greater opportunity, wealth. Do they honestly expect that they should not have to contribute in some way to this end? It's quite beyond belief. No one asks you to go to university in the first place. It's a choice that has a price tag. Now, if you're prepared to pay the price and put in the work, that's the study, the effort, at the end of the day, yes, you will have a debt. And you should be glad to pay it. Thank you so much for being with us. Have I got a second for some dates?
Yes.
Very quickly. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. Happy wedding anniversary. It is the, golly, 29th. The 29th. On this day, 2023, a 1978 Toyota Land Cruiser named the Mud Crab drives 7 kilometres underwater at 30 feet deep to cross Darwin Harbour, Pete.
I didn't know about that.
I've heard of off-roading, but that's ridiculous. Why? Anyway, I would imagine you got your feet wet, but it's probably what you wanted to do. His Royal Highness Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, weds Lady Diana Spencer at St Paul's Cathedral, London, on this day in 1981. Test footage first created for Walt Disney's Steamboat Willie, which later became Mickey Mouse. 1928 was the year. This was the day. David Niven, British actor, Around the World in 80 Days, Rogues. He dies in Switzerland of Lou Gehrig's disease. He was only 73. He did another wonderful movie too. Oh, he did so many. He really did. The Bishop's Wife was a lovely movie. He was one of those absolutely effortless actors. He played David Niven, as no one could possibly play David Niven, but that's all he did. People loved him for it. Infamous lunch, the result that resulted in 3 deaths through suspected mushroom poisoning. The cook, Erin Patterson, later arrested, charged and found guilty in 2023. This is the day of the infamous lunch. And there is a book, 2 books in fact, coming out, one next month I believe. William Wilberforce, British politician, philanthropist and leader of the movement to abolish the slave trade, dies at 73. The year was, well, I've got 1933 here. I think it's more likely to be 1833, isn't it? I'll check that. Defeat of the Spanish Armada, the invincible Spanish Armada, is cited approaching England, several skirmishes follow, forcing the invading fleet to make a long and costly retreat around Scotland and Ireland. 1588. Police shootout with Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Bonnie and Clyde. In Iowa, leaves one member, Clyde's brother, Buck Barrow, dead and one captured. Bonnie and Clyde escape, but not for long. It was this day in 1933. Thank you so much for being with us, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great week, and we'll be back on Thursday morning with another posting here on Facebook at 9 o'clock, and it'll be out on various podcasts, thanks to Andy Martin, and of course our broadcast from the dining room table, jeremycordeaux.com, 9 o'clock, interesting guests, a lot of fun, different, very different. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I will see you soon. Believe in yourself, and thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion.